Yeah. Wake up with coffee and sports. Sunrise glow, listen coast to coast. A flow like you know.
Offensively, who made them? Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Sideline to sideline with plays to show. This network's got the spark.
When you put up 300 yards rushing against someone, that you got your butt whooped.
I feel like I would have liked to see Oregon Ohio State in the semis, not the quarters. So I think some reseeding is probably where I would change. But
they're out of their mind. They're going to do this 3 quarterbacks in a row.
Here's the crazy.
I just can't take it.
Birds keep flying high, fans cheering loud, and one podcast moving through the crowd. Meaty boys brawling, no holds barred loud. This wire life never in doubt. Tune into the vibe.
That's my bold prediction for the show. Devin Booker in the next 3 years, he will be a Houston Rocket.
Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman? You know what I mean?
Tune in the vibe. Wardy West, good centers. Got me on the mic, now let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Will to Steph, we hit it again. Mo better chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Puppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream high. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, but roll better. We're who cares? Trendsetters.
What's poppin', y'all? It is your boy, Guard E3, and welcome to the And One Podcast. And, of course, joining me is the man that makes us all happen, the greatest co-host of all time. He is Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing great, Brett. It's a Thursday night, so you know what it is. It's the N1 Podcast. We're about to get into it.
Absolutely. So, you know how it is. You know, I got to start this out, Mo. Underrated player of the week. Who do you got for us this week?
I don't have players. This week I'm going with 2 coaches. Mark Daigneault for the Oklahoma City Thunder and Joe Mazzulla of the Boston Celtics. I just think that a lot of times in pro sports you get a lot of regurgitation of older coaches going from job to job. Seeing what Joe Mazzulla has done in Boston, seeing what Mark Daigneault has done with the Thunder, it makes me upbeat about the coaching in the NBA, that there are young up-and-coming coaches who can step into the void, bring with them their own system, and have success. Not just success, but championship success and extended success. Look, the Thunder came in the defending champions. So you already have a bullseye around you. The fact that they've had all the injuries that they've had, and still stayed at the level that they stayed at, that's not just talent. That's a culture. That's the system. That's their coach. And I feel even more so about what Joe Mazzulla has done. You lose an all-NBA player like Jason Tatum for practically the entirety of the season, more or less. And Jaylen Brown just steps into the void and has an MVP caliber season. Derek White is still Derek White. Peyton Pritchard is there. You have guys like Kata stepping up and having big seasons. I think that's about culture. That's about system. That's about an atmosphere. Those are made by those 2 coaches. So my underrated guys this week are those 2 coaches.
Hey, arguably the most important person on the team, whoever's on the sidelines. Getting obviously a real big glimpse of that this week, or say this last couple of years. I mean, Bucks have one of the best players in the world. We just have the most incompetent coach in the world. So I absolutely love shouting out Daigneault and company for such a good job. My underrated player of the week, Mo. Look, when we talk about those Chicago Bulls teams with Derrick Rose, Talk D Rose, Jakeem Noah gets brought up because of that contract
Sure.
and that MVP finish. I feel like not enough people talk about what Luol Deng brought to that team, though. Just an absolute Iron Man workhorse on the perimeter. Could help Rose a little bit out in creating his own shot, but mainly just a defender and, like I said, with some scoring chops. But he was just such a glue guy for that team, and I think he did a lot of work on that team that almost goes underappreciated. So my underrated player of the week this week is Luol Deng.
I like the Luol Deng shout out. My biggest compliment to Luol Deng is, had he played with the grinded out Grizzlies with Zach Randolph and Tony Allen, he would have fit seamlessly into what they do. That's my biggest compliment to Luol Deng. Just a hard-nosed competitor, a dog that got after it on both ends of the floor. No guts, no glory, but he just got the job done. Good basketball player. I would say he's more than a glue guy, but not quite a star. But he impacted winning, so I think that's a great shout out.
Absolutely. Of course, figure before you get into it, Mo, why not have a little fun? Push, the and one Twitter page that I'm working on growing. Mo, how about we do some start bench cut? But if anybody knows my start bench cuts, I don't like to do it with the regular suspects. I like trying to make it unique. So your start bench cut for this week: Pete Chris Middleton, Pete Gordon Hayward, Pete Danny Granger. Mo, who are you starting? Who are you benching? Who are you cutting?
The best version of all three, I think I would take Danny Granger. I think he was of all three. I think he was the best player when you're talking about the best version of themselves. I would take Granger, start Granger, bench Chris Middleton, and cut Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward was nice, but you really only got a short sample size of how nice he was until he got injured, obviously, when he went to the Celtics, like literally game one with the Celtics, and was never the same player again. We got extended looks at Chris Middleton at a high level, at Danny Granger at a high level, even when his career was cut short. But he had a big sample size, 5-6 years of being an all-star caliber player. So I would start Granger and bench Middleton. That's me.
Hey, fair enough. I it's funny. I had the same idea. I actually think I say it right there. I said I'd just cut Hayward, and I'm starting either Granger or Middleton.
Yeah,
I think the Bucks fan in me won't let me, bench Middleton, so I'd probably start him. But I completely understand any argument for Danny Granger because, man, he was so good for those Pacers teams. Just too bad he got hurt when he did. Him and PG could have been an awesome tandem.
Isn't that crazy? If Danny Granger could have stayed healthy right when Paul George came into the mix, how that could have changed everything in the Eastern Conference. If fate is a crazy thing, that the health gods in the NBA, it's a crazy thing. But yeah, look, I don't think there's a wrong answer unless you're somebody that would start Gordon Hayward, then that's the wrong answer.
Hey, what's good, CEO? Love seeing you on here. Say, by the way, if you haven't checked this guy out, his Twitter handle is CEO of RPO. He's one of the most knowledgeable draft people you're ever going to find, especially for the NFL. So definitely, if you got a minute, check out my guy, CEO. Mazzulla is so underrated. You think Jaylen Brown having it? Yeah, I do think that Joe Mazzulla and the system is a massive reason why the Celtics have not only stayed afloat, but they're absolutely cooking still. Like, let's be real, a lot of other coaches, that Celtics team is falling apart as soon as, Tatum's out for pretty much the entire year. But not only did he keep them afloat, he put them in a position to a point where they're like, hey, if we bring Tatum back, we can win this thing. And now Tatum's back. Good CEO. So, Mo, I wanted to ask you what your opinions on this list that Bleacher Report put out. Because Bleacher Report put out a list, top 15 pure scorers in NBA history. And I think it's interesting. It's funny because this kind of confuses me about the definition of a pure scorer. Like, are we talking about guys that are just really efficient at putting the ball in the basket? Guys with like who have bigger bags? Because I'm getting mixed messages from this list a little bit.
Well, the list is all over the place. I get it that Karl Malone, I'm pretty sure for his career, he averaged around 27 or 26 points a game. So he was definitely a consistent scorer. I don't think, maybe I'm alone on this ledge. I don't think Karl Malone was ever a pure scorer. It's kind of all over the place, and it's odd because one of the guys that I think is a natural scorer, they got Kobe at 10th. I think Steph should be in the top 10, but he shouldn't be number 1. He's not a pure scorer. He primarily scores with his secret power, moving off the ball and catching and shooting. Even though we know he can put the ball on the floor, I don't think Steph's a more pure scorer than Durant or Jordan. And LeBron is the all-time leading scorer. He's definitely been the most consistent scorer. I don't know if I would call him a pure scorer. To me, Luka is a pure scorer, right? That's a scorer. You could go Shea's a scorer. They say they have Kyrie as a pure scorer. Kyrie can actually get it. He's got the big bag and he can score. Is he a pure scorer though? Like, normally if you're considered a pure scorer, you have one of those things on your resume. It's called, I led the league in scoring at least once. At least one, that would be like only once. Maybe you've got some other seasons where you came close. Kyrie's terrific. I don't know if he's a pure scorer because clearly he's never led the league in scoring. He has an incredibly big bag. And if we judge you off your bag, Kyrie's bag might make him number 1 in terms of bag. I don't think Kyrie Irving's one of the top 15 pure scorers ever to play the game. Like you said, this list sends mixed messages because there's a few guys on here who aren't what I would call pure scorers. So I don't know. Bleacher Report has put out a lot of lists that have gotten a lot of responses. I'm sure this one will get a lot of responses. I think Karl Malone shouldn't be on the list at all. I think Kobe's too low. I don't know. The list is kind of all over the place for me, but it's definitely something you can talk about. It's worth debating over.
Yeah, and that's kind of what throws me off, right? Because like, all right, are you going off scoring titles and all accolades? Because then there's probably missing some guys, but are you going off bag work? Because then all of a sudden, like, in all reality, what's a guy like Giannis doing here? He can average 30, but it's not like scoring. But it's not like his bag's massive. Say, love Giannis, but I don't know if I'd call him I don't know if he's a pure scorer by definition, but I see him more as a two-way demon. But that's kind of what I'm confused by. Like, the criteria goes all over the place. Like, I think Kyrie probably he qualifies as a pure scorer, but the accolades aren't going to match up with that when it comes to scoring titles. So it's like, oh.
It is confusing because I feel that way about Giannis too. I'm like, if we're talking about just ranking them as players, then Giannis should be ranked much higher. But I think that Giannis and Shaq are very similar. I don't think they're pure scorers. I just don't. I think Damian Lillard is as pure a scorer as Kyrie is. If Kyrie's on the list, Dame's got to be on the list. Right? Like, I think Dame's more of a scorer than Kyrie. We're not talking about bag. We're talking about scoring. If we're talking about scoring, wouldn't Dame be on there? Wouldn't somebody like Devin Booker be more of I think Devin Booker's a pure scorer. That's just my own opinion. I just think the list is really wobbly.
You know who gets snubbed from like all of these lists, and it's kind of funny? Like Melo. Actually, that's a good one. But I was actually going in a slightly different direction. I can call him older Melo, but like Adrian Dantley, that's all he did was score 30 points a game. And he
Older
somehow
Melo.
always misses these purest scoreless. Like, how?
That's a great point. If Malone's on the list, Dantley should be on the list before Malone. Hell, if George Gervin's on the list, and I'm not saying he shouldn't be, then Dantley should be on the list. Yeah, I'm with you. That's a score. That's a pure score. You could have even had Dominique Wilkins on the list if you're just talking about scoring, because Dominique was a prolific scorer. They don't have T-Mac on here. They don't think T-Mac's the pure scorer. Like I don't know if I would have him top 15, but I would have T-Mac top 15 ahead of Karl Malone.
Believe me, CEO, I'm not the biggest Dantley fan. I think there was a big reason why teams got better as soon as Dantley left. But I feel like in a list like this, it's weird because he seems like the most prime candidate to be thrown on a list like this.
Right. And we're talking pure scoring. We're not saying, best player or guy that can lead you to a title. Dantley was a black hole. He was a great talent, but he wasn't going to lead you to a title as the best player. He wasn't that guy.
Okay, so CL threw out his not necessarily pure scores, just best off the top of his head. They say I forgot to add Wade and Shea on his list, but they should be up here too. But said mine's some like MJ, Kobe, Kareem, Bron, Shaq, KD, Steph, Dirk, West, Jokic, Harden, Wilt, Gervin, Kawhi, and Melo.
So again, Shaq's not a pure scorer. He definitely led the league in scoring before. I think he did it once or twice, but was Shaq and Wilt great scorers, or were they just the biggest and strongest guys of their time? Like, Wilt definitely put up pinball machine numbers, and I'm not denigrating him. He just played in a different era. So, and I don't era penalize. So yeah, I can respect Wilt's numbers and his accolades. Like, here's an example, Brett. What was not Jerry West a great scorer? Jerry West played for 14, 15 years and put up numbers. We think of the big O, Brett, because of the triple doubles, but you got a career scoring average of 25. He's like 20. He's almost like 20, 25, 8, and 9 or something crazy like that. Like, I'm just saying that Jordan, I get. Kobe, I get. KD, I get. Dirk's an interesting one. I would have Dirk in there over Karl Malone. I would have Harden in there because I think Harden is a scorer. I would have Luka in there because I think Luka and Harden are essentially the same guy. I don't know I don't think I would have Wilt or Shaq on the list. And I understand Kareem's greatness, but was he a pure scorer or did he just have the most unstoppable shot? He just came down and he swung the skyhook 15,000 times. Like, I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it. But if we're talking about pure scorers, this is where it gets confusing because you brought up the point about, is this just your ability to get baskets or is it your bag's ability to make you get baskets, right? Because we would both agree that Olajuwon has a bigger bag than Kareem, and it's not even close, right? Right? Yeah. Like, Olajuwon could do more things to get buckets than Kareem could do. I don't even like him, but Joel Embiid could do more to get buckets than Kareem could do. Same for Joker. So I think I don't know where Bleacher Report is coming from. Like, some of the guys they have on the list make sense. Some of the guys they have on the list don't make sense. This isn't an indictment on who's better than who, because if we were talking about them as just individual players, Giannis would be much further up the list. But I don't have a problem saying I wouldn't have Giannis on the list because I don't think he's that kind of scorer. I don't think Shaq is either. And I don't think Wade is either. I think Wade had 1 year where he averaged 30 points, but for the most part, he was around 24 points, which was consistent. But that would make Wade less prolific than Oscar Robertson, less prolific than Jerry West, less prolific than prime Tracy McGrady, less prolific than prime Vince Carter. So I think Wade was terrific. I don't think he's one of the best 15 players scoring, one of the great scorers of all time. It's funny because that conversation, who's better, Wade or Harden? I think Wade is a better basketball player, but there's no question Harden was a better scorer. It's not even close.
I was gonna say Wade's got that two-way advantage. I think Harden's the better offensive player, but Wade's just the better two-way player.
No question. And you could say that if you compare Luka to someone else, but to Luka and Harden's credit, they were so dominant offensively, it offset more times than not their shortcomings.
Absolutely. I'd say I did like your list, CEO. He said he didn't do peer scores, just some of the best scores. Okay, that's fair.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, hey, look, I respect it because I do think he did name some names like you mentioned. He's got Jerry West hiding in here. He's got Dirk, and I like said like you mentioned. If you ask me who's a better peer scorer between Giannis and Dirk, the answer is Dirk.
I'm with that.
George Gervin gets snubbed off these lists too many times. Honestly, Kawhi, I'll take Kawhi. He's so good scoring the basketball. Just efficient from pretty much every level.
Kawhi is the most impressive person because Kawhi came into the league so unpolished and he was a natural defender, but he was not a natural offensive player. To see where he's got what he's developed into over the years, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. By the way, you know what I almost went for with my underrated player of the week, and I also kind of wanted to give a shout out to. I don't know if you saw his I don't know if you keep a close eye on him lately, Mo, but man, Ace Bailey is starting to develop into a problem over in Utah. I watched those clips especially against the Bucks, obviously, and I think he's doing something that a lot of young athletes and players don't do enough, and he's scoring off 2 dribbles or less. And I feel like that's just so nice to have somebody that can catch it and make a quick decision and just get to the rim and score in 2 dribbles or less. Didn't need to hold the ball or pound it into the ground. Just catch it, make a move, and put pressure on the defense. So I got to admit, Utah's developing Ace real nicely. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Ace in Utah.
Look, the Jazz don't lack for talent, but it is a matter of putting all that young talent together in a system where they all have defined roles. I think that's the next step for them because this draft is coming up. They're going to get another pick. Like at some point, that young talent has to come to fruition to where they're at least work your way up, get into the play-in, then get into the playoffs. And I think they're close. I think they're really close. The addition of Jaren Jackson Jr., I think that gives you a guy that can do a little bit of everything. You put him alongside somebody like Marketing. They get the big back once he comes back from injury. Like they have so much talent on that team. So to see Ace stepping up late in the season, I hope he can take that momentum with him through the offseason coming into training camp next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if they get lucky in the draft and if they can get somebody. You know what's funny? Ironically can parlay this into puppy prospects because I have a prospect I think would be real nice for him. So it's funny because, granted, it'd be kind of an awkward fit, but I think one thing that team might need is a perimeter defender. Because I like Laurie and I like Jaren Jackson, but they're more rim protectors, and then Keontae George isn't a defender. So I think they need a guy that can go out in the wing and help get some stops. And I think that's exactly what Caleb Wilson from UNC can do for them. He's a great defensive playmaker. He's somebody that offenses have to take into consideration no matter where he is. He's a very good first step. He's an explosive finisher, and he's shown he has a mid-range game. He's a good 2-level scorer. He's willing to keep the ball moving, and he's also just a very good rebounder. He's got over 10 boards a game. Obviously, the big flaw right now with Caleb Wilson, three ball's pretty much a non-factor. 26%, nobody's losing sleep over that. It's a thin frame. He's going to have to bulk up offensively. He can get pushed off of his spot. Sometimes defensively, he gets too high in his stance is something that's noticed, and I think savvier guards like your Jalen Brunsons and high IQ players like that will be able to manipulate that and get him into foul trouble. But I also think that's something that's coachable. So that's why I'm not 100% concerned about that. But I think Caleb Wilson's a guy, especially on a team that can, help set him up early in his career while his offensive game develops, because I think he can be a devastating off-ball slasher. Like I said, I think Utah would be fun because I think they could use the defense, but I also think a team like the Pacers or the Wizards, somebody with an elite playmaker that he can play off of would be great for him. So, say puppy prospect for the week is Caleb Wilson.
I actually agree with everything you said about him. I guess if I'm drafting, though, do I see him as a lottery pick or do I see him more as a maybe later in the first round? Because from what you're telling me, he has the potential to be an impact player right out the door, even though he still has to get stronger. Being the athlete that he is, the long, lengthy, quick defender that he is, it seems like for him, where he gets drafted to what franchise, what situation will go a long way in telling us what kind of career, at least the start of his career, will be. I think it really comes down to where he's drafted, but I could see him being drafted in the top 10 because you can improve the shooting. You can work on the shooting. The three-point shooting might take longer, but I think you can improve on the mid-range shooting. There's other ways where he can be effective offensively. If they play more up-tempo, then his athleticism will come into play. And he might have more of a bag off the dribble than a lot of people even realize. So I've watched him. The kid's really impressive. I wouldn't be shocked if he got drafted in the top 10.
I think he will. I think with I think with Caleb, the biggest thing for him will be fit early on, because I don't think he's going to go somewhere, and I don't think he's a guy that you can just put the ball in his hands right away and just be like, "Hey, make a play."
Right.
So I think for example, if I'm a team looking for like a primary offensive engine, I'd probably just consider passing. But if I'm a team like, for example, let's say Indiana gets a high, lands in like the top, 3 or 4, then I think, it's a conversation now, because this is a guy who can slide in perfectly on the wing. He could be an absolutely devastating off-ball weapon. And like I said, honestly, I don't even need the three ball to develop. If that mid-range stays true at the NBA level and he just adds some muscle to be able to bang with, the bigger wings of the league, he's going to be an absolute problem. So fit for sure is just going to be the biggest factor.
Agreed.
To me with Caleb.
Yeah, I agree. Fit matters. But yeah, it's a great prospect. So love it. And like I said, if I were a GM and he was still there when I was getting ready to pick, I'd pick him.
So I do have a question for you, Mo. I'm sure you've seen the reports that we're gonna try to fix tanking in the off season. Is it just me, Mo, or am I the only one that doesn't trust Adam Silver to not absolutely screw this entire thing up and rush a rule that makes potentially everything worse?
Well, that makes two of us then, because the problem with Adam Silver is he waits for a problem to get really bad and then he overcorrects. And so I feel like him and the powers that be in the league office, they're going to overcorrect and do some kind of blanket, I don't know, some kind of blanket rule or penalty or whatever. I would say leave it alone. I get it as a fan. You don't necessarily want to see tanking, but let me try to take this from another approach. If I'm a season ticket holder and a lifelong Sacramento Kings fan, and you saw the roster that they put together where your primary scorers were 35 and older, so clearly you weren't trying to win a title. Those aren't your guys for your future. I know if I'm a Kings fan, I have no shame in saying, yeah, we needed to tank this year. We needed to get a high draft choice because there's like one guy on our roster that's part of our future. Like, I think there's certain teams that needed to tank. And I know people don't like tanking. And quite honestly, I don't even know if I can say that the Kings tank. I honestly believe, because I've watched enough of their games, they're losing honestly. You might consider them to be tanking because they're really bad. No, this right here is what happens when you're just really bad. You have a bad record. I don't think they're tanking, but my point is that even to the teams that are tanking, what are you to do if you do what Chicago does year in and year out, just good enough to make the play-in, which means you're just good enough to probably miss the playoffs, but not bad enough to get a lottery pick. You're in NBA purgatory. So I would rather the owners and the GMs correct themselves than Silver overcorrect and put down something insane that's going to make things much worse.
No, absolutely. And like I said, that's kind of where, like I said, I hope I'm wrong. I hope whatever they think of, they get exactly what they, what they want out of it. But yeah, I don't really trust them to really nail this one out of the park. Yeah, and by the way, Bo, I might as well announce it on here too. I know we're gonna do the big board with the top 30 prospects, Mo.
Right.
I thought I'd have a little more fun actually with it, and I think just throughout the week, just almost make it one big tournament that everybody gets to vote on and
That's
have fun with.
I like that.
So I made a tournament bracket, and I pretty much put all 30 prospects' names in a tournament bracket and randomized it. So, and that's where this gets fun. By the way, I did replace some of the weaker prospects with some from this year and some more fun older prospects. I decided to only go up to the, like what we do. I only went up to the post merger. So you're not going to get like Kareem or Bill Russell on here.
Cool.
But let me tell you some of these first round matchups that we got, by the way, and trying to determine who is the greatest number one pick in the last 30 years, prospect wise. We got Yao Ming versus Darren Peterson. Interesting one right there.
Wow, that is an interesting one.
I'd say you got Zion Williamson or Cade Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
Say AI versus or Tim Duncan.
AI versus Tim Duncan?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a brutal one.
Yeah, and everybody listening in, for the only rule of this is we're going to be voting based on what they did pre-NBA. So collegiate, post-draft hype. You can take all that into consideration. Just can't take NBA career into consideration. Yeah, I agree. I think Zion's going to make a run. Say, got Anthony Davis or Cam Boozer. Boozer drew a bad matchup here. I feel so bad.
I'm taking it. Yeah, AD wins that one pretty easy.
Say, Greg Oden or John Wall.
John Wall was tough. I mean, and Greg Oden was nice at Ohio State, but I don't know if he was a better prospect than John Wall. That's really close, but I guess 9 times out of 10 you defer to the big man because he was going to be the next big thing. I think people thought Greg Oden was going to be kind of Rudy Gobert, but Rudy Gobert with more offensive prowess, if you will, right? I think they thought that's what he was going to end up being. And had he been that would have been amazing. But again, this is about when they were in college. It's so close. But I remember like Wall had a lot of hype, but Greg Oden had like hype. Like he had Tim Duncan hype, even though he didn't turn out to be nowhere near Tim Duncan, but that's the kind of hype he had. So if I'm going off the hype of it, I think I would have to take Greg Oden.
Now that's fair. Mo, this next matchup might be the main event of round one, by the way. Hakeem Olajuwon or David Robinson as the number one pick. Say the random draw decided to pair Hakeem and David Robinson together.
That's really tough. What I remember about David Robinson in college was, I mean, obviously he played at Navy and he was dope. But Olajuwon had a lot of hype. I don't know if you remember, they had lost, him and Drexler had just lost in the NCAAs to North Carolina State. But Phi Slamma Jamma came into games with a lot of hype and fanfare. I think it's close, but I would go with Akeem.
So we got.
This is what, don't forget, when you're taking into consideration when David Robinson was drafted, he already had to spend a couple of years in the Navy. Like he didn't go to the Spurs right away. So I'm just saying, I know if I'm a GM, great player, but I don't know if I'm waiting 2 years for you.
Say, actually, second best matchup. There's one more that I know will absolutely draw more attention later down the road. But next one they put is Chris Webber or Cat. I'd probably go Chris.
I'll go Chris Webber. Chris Webber came out of high school with a lot of fanfare. He was hype, obviously part of the Fab Five. Cat was big in college, but he didn't have that kind of hype.
Say, how about Cooper Flagg or Paulo Banchero?
Ooh, that's more recent. Ooh.
Say, as much as I love Paulo, I think I'd go Coop on this one.
I'm going Cooper too, because I think most people thought Paulo was going to be nice coming out of college. He has been nice, but he hasn't been what you and I thought he was. But when people talk about Cooper Flagg, they're talking about Cooper Flagg like Cooper Flagg's going to elevate himself into the conversation where it's going to be not Chet, but Cooper Flagg or Wemby. So I would go with Cooper Flagg.
Sean Bradley should have been the number one pick in '93. Hey, Sean Bradley was a demon.
He should not have been picked that high.
Say, oh, by the way, and then just for reference, the two buys that they decided to give, it gave Ben Simmons a buy in the first round.
He needed it. And
Shaquille O'Neal. So I was like, okay, Shaq makes sense. And I'm like, Ben Simmons? Yeah, sure, why not? The next one it gave us is Dwight Howard or Kyrie Irving.
Well, since the Dwight didn't play college at all, he had a ton of hype, especially through the AAU circuit. But Kyrie, even though he only played the 1 year and played like I want to say a dozen games, Brett. Kyrie had insane hype, and he had that same reputation coming up even before he hit Duke. So I'm gonna say Kyrie had more hype.
Say, Mo, this might be the matchup that gets the most attention in the first round because the random generator does know what it's doing, apparently. Magic Johnson or LeBron James. I promise you, I randomized it and it just happened to pair Magic and LeBron together. I'm like, oh dear. Battle of Laker legends.
So here's the funny part about this. If Magic was matched up against any other player, he probably wouldn't win the matchup. And of course, Magic had incredible hype. Michigan State had just won the national championship, beat Larry Bird, tons of hype. I don't think that hype equals the hype they had for a high school guy when they had him on national TV on ESPN on prime time network. It's got to be LeBron. It's got to be. Magic Johnson's my favorite player of all time, and I'm telling you, it's LeBron.
Hey, say yeah, fair. I always say that Magic's the greatest Laker of all time. Say it. By the way, Mo, I see I had a little fun on you asked on a TikTok who the greatest Laker was of all time. Do you see my little fun answer I gave to you?
I didn't see it yet.
Oh, I put Marcelo Huertas.
That's good. I thought you were gonna say Robert Sacre or somebody like that, but that's good.
I'd say got another fun one. I'd say Elton Brand or Maple Jordan, Andrew Wiggins.
Ooh. I got to see Brand in college. Brand was a monster in college. Like I looked at him and knew like whoever drafted him, they were getting the kind of guy you could potentially build around. I only knew Wiggins from the hype that he had. I don't know that Wiggins' hype exceeded what Brand did. I think Wiggins got his legend grew, if you remember at the combine when he did the vertical. It's close. I guess you could give Wiggins the edge because of the hype he got coming out of the combines.
No, absolutely. And we got three more. Got Ant or Blake Griffin.
Ooh.
Ant.
You said Ant or Blake Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
Saw Blake at Oklahoma with his brother. I thought Blake was explosive and athletic. I didn't think he was all that special, but a lot of people thought that Blake could be a franchise player. And look, I know he didn't win a title, but when he went to the Clippers, and I know we're talking about what they did in college, I think that Blake did more in college than Ant did. I mean, we're not talking about what their careers were in the pros, just in their college lifetime. I think didn't Ant only play 1 year?
Yeah.
I don't know if he had that 1 year was more impactful or more. I think Ant is clearly the more naturally talented player, but we're judging him off of the hype they came with towards the draft. I think it was Blake Griffin. I think people were really hyped for Blake Griffin.
Fair. And then the last two, it's somebody who could go number one in this year's draft. AJ Dimasta. The matchup he drew, Derrick Rose.
AJ's gonna lose. You gotta lose. Derrick Rose had hype in college or high school. He goes to Kentucky and does not disappoint. Derrick Rose lived up to all the hype, and everybody knew that Derrick Rose was going to be drafted one. I like Derrick Rose. Like I said, I think AJ has the potential to be one of those dudes, but he like magic. He drew the wrong first round matchup. He's not going to beat D Rose.
No, that's fair. Hey, you know what? That's fair. We've all been there. I remember in mid 2010s, Mo, I was an absolute hell trying to hype up a lot of Bucks first rounders. Oh, like me trying to tell them, no, this is why Rashad Vaughn's going to be good or Thon Maker. They're going to be good, I'm telling you. And it turns out I was just horribly wrong every time.
T3 and D, you are not alone. I thought Ant was going to be one of those dudes who was going to be a slasher but couldn't shoot well enough. And he 1,000% proved me wrong.
And the last matchup, Mo, I think is the most interesting. It's actually I know the winner, by the way. I have this one. I think it's pretty easy, but I think it's an interesting one. Wemby versus Ralph Sampson. If people don't remember Ralph Sampson coming into the league, he was almost like the original unicorn, the 7-footer that could defend the rim, shoot. You know, he could do some little work putting the ball on the floor. Like, he could do everything. Like, everybody was hyped for Ralph Sampson before the injuries took over.
Did not, and he didn't disappoint.
Yeah,
that is a really tough matchup. But again, restricting it to what they were before they were drafted, Ralph Sampson they talked about him the way they talked about Kareem and Wilt, and they just knew he was going to be the next big thing. I don't know if you ever got to see this game. It's probably on YouTube. But I saw the hyped up matchup in college of Ralph Sampson versus Patrick Ewing. And what I remember about that matchup is Patrick Ewing abused him. Ralph Sampson was going to be the next big thing. He lived up to his hype. It's interesting, though. what I know of Wemby was everything I learned from looking at his videos on YouTube, from other people with the buildup of him. But when I got to see him play in international play, I felt about Wemby the way I felt about Sabonis's dad. I saw Arvydas Sabonis play, and I was like, he's dominating David Robinson. He's dominating our guys. I knew Wemby was going to be special. Ralph Sampson was terrific. If I'm judging on what they were coming out, going into the draft, I think Ralph Sampson had more hype about him. He just did. I think he wins the match. Again, I can't judge off of what he became because we're just talking about their years prior to the NBA. I think Ralph had that kind of hype. He had that kind of hype.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I thought it was an interesting matchup because it almost feels like the original unicorn versus the new age unicorn.
Yeah.
Say, one of my biggest what ifs, what if Arvydas Sabonis actually came to the league in his prime? Like,
yeah.
Truly an incredible talent. But yeah, say, if you guys aren't following the And One page on Facebook or Twitter, I'll be, posting polls on there for this. I'll also be posting them in the Discord. I'll just have to keep track of like 3 different polls. That's fine. But yeah, no, that's our next fun project that we're going to be doing with And One, trying to figure out who you guys think is the greatest draft prospect in the last 30 years. Some guys drew a tough matchup, but hey, if you're truly the best prospect, you're going to overcome whatever. By the way, and then
what is that? Come on.
Say, and then of course, Mo, flipping gears a little bit. Hey, WNBA got their stuff figured out.
I'm glad.
We got more and more details about this new CBA. So it seems like there are rumors about a $6 million salary cap. It's actually 7. It's going to start at 7. Supermax is going to be 1.4 million, and your average salary is going to be around 600,000, and a minimum. The minimum is now 300,000. So that I think that some other additional stuff. Say latest possible season end date is in November. So 2 developmental players can be activated for 12 games. Number of possible games, we could potentially get up to 52 WNBA games by the end of this deal. So I think the most interesting part is going to be, it sounds like a lot, $7 million salary cap, Mo, but when you have to field a roster of, 15 players, and your Supermax is 1.4.
All right.
And even if the max is slightly less, around let's say 1.2 or 1.3, like let's say you max out 2 players, Mo, and now all of a sudden you're looking at a lot of vet men and just challenges filling out the rest of the roster. So I think you're going to have to start seeing some player movement. Like we talk about, a team like, for example, the Aces having 3 max level players, even super max level players. I don't think that can happen if you want to properly fill out the rest of the roster. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more player movement and team movement because, in all reality, with the way the contracts are set up relative to the salary cap, I don't think you can really sustain having like 2 or 3 max and super max players on one roster.
No. And I think these negotiations, this CBA is a great start for the WNBA. But with it comes new problems if you're a WNBA GM. Because to your point, the back end of your roster is going to be depleted. You're not going to be able to have 3 max players and put a lot of talent around them. So they're going to have to do some of now they're dealing with the problems that NBA GMs have to deal with. They have to make some financial sacrifices. And you're going to have to put a bigger premium on drafting and developing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And of course, we're going to be getting our expansion team soon. So we're going to be going through all the funds of the expansion drafts. By the way, I do want to clarify this because I see some confusion, not only for here, but like the NBA as well. because I actually saw another article from Bleacher Report. They're like, here's some targets for expansion teams. I feel like one point needs to be really hammered out. You can only take one person from each team. You can't just raid an entire team's bench and be like, that's all ours now. So I feel like that's important because I feel like people are just kind of not realizing that. So you obviously they'll get to protect. I believe it's either 5 or 8 players, but everybody else is fair game for the expansion teams to scoop up. But like I said, if you haven't ever seen an expansion draft, once you take a player from that team, you can't double dip from that same team. So it'll be fun to see how they fill out the rosters. I think what they said is there's going to be a coin flip to determine who's going to be the number 1 pick in the expansion draft, and whoever wins and the loser of that coin flip, I believe, ends up getting the 6th pick in the NBA draft, while whoever gets number 1 in the expansion draft will get the 7th pick in the WNBA draft. So yeah, so it's interesting, but I feel like interesting targets. I think this might be an easy way to get off Enrique if you're Dallas. They're clearly unhappy with each other, so I'm excited for the upcoming WNBA season, but we'll have to start the off season, which it's all coming soon.
I'm excited because I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what franchises make which players available for the expansion draft. I think that's going to be very exciting because I think there will be some talented players left out there. And the expansion teams are going to be able to form competitive teams faster than people believe. So look, as a fan, I'm excited for them. As a basketball fan, I'm excited for the WNBA as a whole and for the NBA because I think we're going to get the Sonics back. I want to see that Sonics green again. That's going to be exciting. Vegas is going to have a team, so I'm going to be excited for that draft as well.
Hey, you know what? That Kevin Durant return to Seattle is going to hit home, isn't it?
Look, I don't know why people aren't with me on this, but I think that's a beautiful thing. If he doesn't want to go back to Oklahoma City because he thinks that's Shay's thing now, I get that. But he did play for the Sonics once, and I think it would be a perfect bow around his career along with Russ. If they went back and let's say they were there for a couple of years just to get the Sonics started and get them off to the right start. I think that would be big. I don't know how receptive he is to it, but as a fan, I think that would be amazing.
Legendary Bucks draft picks. Oh boy. Eric Mobley, Sean Respert, and Skip Tamilu, Ray for Alston.
Don't forget, didn't y'all draft Todd Day and Lee Mayberry?
Yeah.
And what's that guy named Joe
Alexander?
Oh my God. Do you know how many people told me, like, you don't know basketball? Joe Alexander gonna be nice. I'm like, really? Joe Alexander? They're like, yo, he's gonna be a star. Give it a couple of years, superstar. I was like, oh, okay.
I was just getting into basketball when we drafted Joe Alexander, starting to get like hardcore into basketball. And I looked at my first thought was like, those guys I was like, dude, he looks like a actor who looks like he's playing a basketball player. He don't even come off as a basketball player. Like, I'm sure he's nice in college, but he looks like if we shot like High School Musical all grown up and we needed somebody to play Zac Efron's, Troy Bolton, like, I feel like Joe Alexander looked like he could fill that role. But hey, you know what?
You got a great point. Joe Alexander looked more like he was made for Hollywood than he was the NBA. I agree 100%.
I say, hey, shout out to Joe. He did something I'll never do, so respect. But I'd say, yeah. If anybody doesn't know, the WNBA timeline right now, April 1st through the 6th, that's when we're gonna get. So pretty much in like next week, we're gonna start protecting players, have our expansion drafts. April 7th through the 18th, free agency. You can negotiate with your own free agents. I think that say the 12th, you can start signing people. April 13th is the WNBA draft. Training camp on the 19th, and then the regular season will begin May 8th. Like I said, I think this is interesting in the sense that everything's so condensed. Like, we're so used to like seeing free agency, then the draft, and then the
Right.
second wave of free agency. Like because of this lockout, it's just going to be like, nope. Here's expansion draft, free agency, and the draft all in the same month within like 3 weeks of each other. So
It is so close together and jumbled together that I will say this: as a basketball fan, as a junkie, we're gonna have a lot of stuff to talk about almost on a daily basis.
yeah, and say there's there's like 77. Believe the number's like 77 free agents right now. Pretty much the entire league in the WNBA is a free agent because they all wanted to wait until this CBA was ratified so they can get that nice pay bump. So it's going to be a wild ride, and I'm looking forward to it.
I'm also curious about the draft too, because we know some of the talented players that we've got to see this year in the women's division, but a player that didn't play this year that opted to get healthier, to be fully as healthy as possible for the draft. I'm wondering if people have almost forgotten about Juju Watkins, because somebody will draft Juju Watkins. Like I don't know if she's going to go as high as number 1 right now, but whoever gets her, they're getting a franchise player.
I was going to say, I think Juju's. Is she this year? I believe she's next year's draft of 2027.
I thought that she was going to go out for this year because that's why she didn't play this year at all. She opted not to play to get healthier. I don't think she's going to play again.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Say if she does end up coming out, this year, that would just make it an even more fun class. So I say I'm excited to see what happens. And then I'm curious to see. I also saw that the Indiana Fever have pretty much moved every single one of their games except like 5 of them to NBA stadiums.
Yeah,
which is really cool. The only places that they didn't move to an NBA stadium are the places that don't have an NBA stadium. Like, obviously, there really isn't any place for them to move the game to in Connecticut unless you want to go play at the local park down the road. So, yeah, like I said, that is really cool to see that the game also is just steadily growing, and not many people want to show up to it. That they're like, yeah, we got to move this to a bigger stadium, guys.
I love that the league is growing, that they're making enough sustainable revenue to where they're finally getting into the green. They're getting out of the red. It's a terrific product. If you're a fan of basketball and you just love basketball, you're in heaven, because as the NBA season is winding down, we're heading into the postseason. The WNBA is just ramping up. I'm there. I'm watching that. From a talent standpoint, from a skill set standpoint, the WNBA is as entertaining as any league.
And then I say, of course, Mo, we gotta touch on the whole I'll touch on the drama now with the 65 game rule. Cade Cunningham's out, which means he's also out of awards, and now it seems like we might get a revamp really soon. Next year. Oh, it is next year.
Okay. Appreciate that, Kyle.
Appreciate it, Kyle. Thank you. So I guess, do you think that it is time to update that 65 game rule?
Yes. And I'm not saying do away with the 65 game rule. I like the 65 game rule, but I think that you can make reform to it, some amendments to it. A good example would be this year, Cade Cunningham has played in 61 games. He has a collapsed lung. This isn't a hangnail or load management or anything of that nature. I think that Cade Cunningham should still be eligible for all NBA honors. I think they need to find a way to amend that. If somebody plays that many games and he's going to fall 4 games short, I think you have to find a way to amend that. I think you do. I think maybe it's a case-by-case basis, but in Cade Cunningham's case, he should absolutely be able to reap the benefits of his performance and make the All NBA team.
And I almost feel because everybody talks about wanting to, like, we've had talks about people wanting to shorten the season to 62 games. What if we just knock down if you want to keep this games limit, why don't we just knock it down to like 60 or 62? Like, let's just knock it down to like 60 and then make some slight changes around it to make sure, guys aren't getting snubbed. But yeah, no, it's an absolute travesty that Cade isn't going to be eligible.
It is. But yeah, I like that. So your idea, let's knock it down to 60 games, but just put some reforms into place. If a guy has a season-ending injury and he's played 60 games or he's played 59 games, he should be eligible for postseason accolades, right? I think that's fair. And I think, like I said before, maybe you have to make it on a case-by-case basis. Look, there's some guys in the league today we know right now that are terrific players, but they're never going to play 65 games again in their career. Like, I don't think Anthony Davis is going to play 65. Now, he might have a terrific season and give the Wizards 60 games. Kawhi might do the same for the Clippers, but neither one of them are going to hit that 65 game threshold. And that's okay. I think they're good with that. But for the other guys out there they're putting in the work, you have a season-ending injury or you have something like what happened to Cade, I think there should be reforms in there to say, like, Cade had played damn near most of the games, and then he had a season-ending injury. He should still reap the benefits of the terrific season that he had. It's kind of weird because you pointed this out to me earlier. His misfortune is going to elevate his teammate Jalen Duren to All NBA status. And while we both know the Pistons love Jalen Duren, we also know they're not in a rush to pay him all the money in the world. But when you make All NBA, it comes with an elevation in salary. It also comes with where you and your agent can come to the table and go, this is what we think Jalen is worth now. Like, so I think the rule can trigger some things that are negative if you're not careful on how you use it.
I love Jalen Duren, but giving him a supermax almost seems like one of those moves of slamming a championship team window shut before it even opens.
Yeah.
I think Jalen Duren's good. Do I think he's supermaxing him and Cade Cunningham good? No. I think it'll almost end up being a situation where they'll have to come to a middle ground. Like, hey, we'll give you more than the max, but we're not touching the supermax. Say, because the minute that hits, it almost feels like that the depth is gone, and then you're like, all right, can Jalen Duren elevate his game enough to carry non-Cade minutes? And while I think he's done a great job of that this year, I need to see him more like another season sample size to be moved by it.
The true test for Jalen Duren is going to be the postseason, because we both hope that Cade comes back ready to go. But let's say Cade comes back and he's a little rusty, right? Which is fair when you miss the amount of time he's going to miss. And then the offensive load is put on the back of Jalen Duren. We're going to see if Jalen Duren can be a guy that can carry your offense for different stretches at a time. I'm a Jalen Duren fan, but I don't think he's that guy, at least not yet at this stage of his career. Could he still develop it? He could. He certainly could. I don't want people to forget, I believe Jalen Duren is only like 22 years old, so he's a young, talented player. But you're right. If they end up committing and caving and giving him a super max, I think you might be shutting the window closed on what you could have been had you done it a certain way. And because they do need another scorer. They need another shot creator to take some of the load off of Cade Cunningham. And if you put all that money into Jalen Duren, what's going to happen is the same fans that love Jalen Duren now, they're going to turn on him. And when they turn on him, all they're going to point out is every time is, you know how much money is he making? Because that's what they do. So, yeah, I think Detroit's got to be really careful. I think you're spot on. They have to have a real hard conversation with him and his agent and go, Jalen, we think you're worthy of making more money, but we can't give you a supermax. Can't do it.
I'd say By the way, Mo, truly maybe the most incredible thing just happened. So Iowa upset Nebraska in
What?
the March Madness. So it's a 3-point game, 56 seconds left. Mo, if you're Nebraska, how do you only have 4 players on the court?
What?
Nebraska only had 4 players on the court, and Iowa pretty much just said, "Hey, we're just going to run." And then the Iowa picked up on it and literally just ran. The open man just ran right behind the defense for an easy layup to put them up 5.
Oh my god!
I think Nebraska, I believe their coach is Fred Hoiberg. He used to be an NBA coach.
Yes.
How does that happen? To me, that's not even on the players. That's just straight up on coaching at that point. You got to make sure there's 5 guys out there. And if not, you got to be hey, I need a timeout. We got to get the right guys out there.
Right. That's going to be a hell of a post-game press conference because you know how this is going to go. Coach, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the 4 guys, what was that about? You know what I mean? They're going to be like, and at what point did you realize? Oh, I realized it when they threw the ball over the top and the guy was wide open and got the coach, you got to know when you're in the huddle that what 5 guys are going back out on the floor. Did you make a substitution and the guy you substitute didn't hear you? Or so, that's all about communication. And you're right. I put that on the coach more than the players.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I also saw an interesting stat too before we get up on out of here, Mo. Obviously, a very one of the more interesting stats out there is plus minus. There's an interesting name leading the NBA in plus minus, Mo. LaMelo Ball. LaMelo is averaging a career low in points and assists. He's averaging a career low in points, which I think makes this interesting. It's just going to show, I think, though, growth, because it's almost like I'm watching him in real time sacrifice individual stats for the betterment of the team and make everybody around him better. I think the plus minus numbers are a little wonky, but I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was only right to shout out LaMelo Ball because I think it's accurate, Mo. I think a big reason to their success is LaMelo Ball is combining into the this team offense, and even though his individual stats are dropping, the entire team is rising as a result of LaMelo Ball just being completely unselfish and helping make everybody better.
I'm gonna choose to be positive and go good for LaMelo. Maybe showing a little bit more leadership than I thought he had in him. Good for him. You know how I feel about plus minus.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those stats that has values, but it is wonky sometimes because I've seen guys have stat lines where they're 0 for 5, 4 rebounds, an assist, and a steal, and they're a plus 21. And I'm watching the game. It's not like I just saw the box. I watched the game, and I'm I watched the game. What did he do? Sitting down positive vibes because he didn't do anything. It wasn't like he was locking down on what did he do? So I'm not gonna put down to LaMelo because I think this is a sign of growth. Even though I still think Con Knipple is the key figure for why they've turned around, but I think LaMelo has been a big part of that. And if he's growing as a leader and it's helping their franchise and all the players on the roster, I'm here for it.
I feel so bad for them, by the way, because the Hornets put it together. They go on this insane winning streak. And what happens? The entire Eastern Conference goes on an insane winning streak. So it's Hornets win 5 in a row. Yeah, that's cool. The Hawks have won 11 in a row. The Magic have won 7 in a row.
Right.
This is one of those things where I felt so bad for them because I'm man, they're doing so good, but they're getting overlooked because everybody else is going stupid at the same exact time. Gotta love March basketball.
You do, and it's weird because they've played terrific, but they've made up very little ground. They're still gonna be in the play-in. I will say this though, even them being in the play-in, I think that's huge for them. I don't want anybody to just, wash that down like it's nothing. That matters. I think that's a stepping stone for this franchise. They've made the play-in with a chance to make the postseason. And even if they don't make it, I think you can build off of this season and go into next season with tons of momentum. I think LaMelo is going to be better. Knipple's going to be better. All of that young core will be a year better. The only guy that I don't know is necessarily part of their future to me is probably Miles Bridges. But I think that overall, look, I find myself quietly rooting for the Hornets to make it to the playoffs outright and see what they can do.
Absolutely. Also, I feel like people underestimate how big the jump is from college to the NBA. I saw a post that says, how many games will this starting five win in the NBA next season? It's A. Cup Jr., Darren Peterson, A.J. Dimebasta, Caleb Wilson, and Cam Boozer. My wife looked at that. I'm like, if I'm being generous, like everything goes right, they might win 25 games, but it's probably going to be closer to 15. Like, I feel like people, when they make posts like that, just underestimate, one, how big the jump is, and two, Cam Boozer is not a five. He would get that defense would get ripped to shreds, just spamming A Cup Boozer pick and rolls constantly.
Yeah, I think Boozer gets ripped to shred, but I think that we have to also factor in those guys aren't all the guys that do the dirty work. So while it looks good on paper, like how would this roster look, you're basically starting five rookies into this monster league. I don't care how talented they are. You're right. I think they would do well to win 25 games.
Yeah, like everybody would be like, 25 games, they suck. If you put that team out there and they won 25 games, I'd be like, that is honestly, I'm more impressed with that than whoever got another one seed that year. Because
Kyle said that team would be picking first next year. Agreed, Kyle. Agreed.
Oh, and then the nightmare of developing five rookies at the same time. That just sounds brutal.
Well, because what happens is while you're developing them, everybody usually at some point within that system has to fall into a role. But everybody we just mentioned, they all were stars, Brett. You know what I mean? Like, who's falling into, well, we need you. We're going to be good if you average around 15 a game and play high-level defense. And you know what I mean? Like, who's making that sacrifice? Because everybody's not going to get to be a star.
Yeah, absolutely. Say, don't give that team to Doc. That would be the kind of team, though, that Doc would like I said. One thing I got, like Glenn, the teams that Glenn does stupid good with at this point are just teams with no expectations. It's like those 20 Lou Will, Montrezl Harrell Clipper teams that had no business being in the playoffs before Kawhi and them got there.
Agreed.
And then they put the Warriors to 6. Let's say, and hey, you know what? By the way, too, my Rudy Gobert propaganda is stronger than ever. That block on Kevin Durant and clutch time.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yo.
I don't know how the Rockets lost that game. Like, how do you blow a 10-plus point lead in overtime?
10-plus point lead in a game which Anthony Edwards didn't play, in a game which Dosunmu, who was his replacement, didn't play. You had to play the guy that you and I talk about that well past his prime. Mike Conley had to play significant minutes. And the Timberwolves came back. Like, I'm watching the Rockets implode, Brett, down the stretch. And the more I watch them play, the more that I hold firm they're a first-round exit.
I genuinely think that I think he's uber talented, Mo, but I think that team's going to end up having to trade Sengun for a better fit. I think Sengun's a great player, and I think he'll throughout his peak and prime be in that top 20 to 30 player in the NBA range. He just doesn't. I don't know. He just doesn't seem to work with how ball dominant he needs to be in his lack of off-ball game. He's still young, still could make it work, but I don't think Sengun is going to magically develop into this off-ball spot-up shooter or this off-ball demon. So I think Sengun's going to be one of those players where, hey, you're really good, but we got to get somebody else that fits around guys like KD and Amen. I need a point guard. I need a playmaker that can get everybody set up and give me a little scoring. and I also need more shooting. So I think Sengun's going to be a piece that gets shipped out for them.
So Sengun stuck in the Sabonis zone.
That's what it feels like.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
really, really, really good, but you already know not quite enough that you can really build off of. I was thinking the same thing. I feel like because they got the wrong Phoenix Suns, they're going to have a mini rebuild. They should have got Devin Booker, and they could have got Devin Booker had they offered a better package. They opted not to. I'm not knocking KD. I'm just saying that KD wasn't the best choice. I think Booker would have been a better choice.
Yeah, no, we were just talking about that Nebraska-Iowa game. I'm not sure how Hoiberg and company let that happen. That was truly incredible. But it feels like the Rock. I don't know. It's going to be weird because then some people are like, "Well, we're getting Van Fleet back next year." I'm like, Van Fleet isn't stepping back into the starting lineup and just magically fixing this mess. He's going to help a lot, but
he is going to help a lot. But let's not forget, he's not like a kid. What is Van Fleet? 30, 31. And KD will be 38. Like, you have to know and really, if you watch this season, his season numbers say, look, he's still efficient and all those things, but he's wearing down. You don't think it's going to be that much tougher for him a year older? Like, I really think he needed to go somewhere where he didn't have to be the guy. He needed to go somewhere where he could be the second option, or maybe the closer, but a third option. There's just no way that Houston wins a title with Kevin Durant as their best player.
It almost feels like, too, that another reason why I think Sengun might getting, sacrificed for the betterment of the team. They just paid Jabari Smith a whole lot of money to really just. It's weird. I don't want to say he's bad because I don't think he's necessarily bad, but he's definitely not worth the amount that they gave him. And I don't think that's a movable contract. He hasn't been good for them.
But they're in trouble because remember what I said when they made this move for Durant, I said they had to win it all or it's a lost season. It's going to be a lost season. And remember, I'm a huge Amen Thompson fan. I think you are as well. But Amen hasn't gotten better. Kyle's right. He hasn't gotten better as a shooter. And oftentimes his inability to shoot has hurt them on both on the floor. And his defense, I think it's kind of taking a step back because of his struggles offensively.
Now,
I don't know. You and I think that Amen Thompson is going to be a perennial All-NBA player, but that only happens if he could be more of a consistent offense. And I'm not even talking about the three ball. Let's just throw the three ball out of the equation. A man's got to be able to make a mid-range jump shot on a consistent basis. He's got to be more than what he's done. Like, he's the same player this year as he was that last year. He did not take a step forward.
Say like a men with a consistent floater is like a drastically different player than what we see now. And like even like you said, just a midi helps them a ton. But hey, this might benefit you because right now the position that they're in, assuming they don't slip and they got a 3-game lead over Phoenix, that'd be a first-round matchup against your Lakers.
Oh no! Don't get me wrong. I've already told people I'm openly rooting that we get to play against the Rockets because I know that we'll win a first-round series. I don't know why, but a team that's always been a bad matchup for us, it's been the Timberwolves, and I think part of that is what Gobert does at the rim, but also that we didn't have anybody that could slow down Ant. And to his credit, and I give credit when credit is due, Julius Randle actually outplayed LeBron last year in the playoffs. Julius Randle was terrific in that series, which is why I want the Lakers to meet the Rockets in the first round because I think that's a team that we could take out in the first round. I don't think the Rockets have the firepower to go back and forth with the Lakers.
Yeah, I think the Rockets are going to end up surviving in that 6 seed. So I think they'll draw whoever the 3 seed is, which will obviously that'll be a fun race right to the end. Lakers are there right now at 47 wins, but the Nuggets are at 46 and the Wolves are at 45. So It'll be interesting to. Oh my! If he could, if we,
I wish. Maybe he can. You know what? Maybe because Demar's got old veteran now. Maybe Demar's at this point in his career where maybe he wants to, take a man under his wing and show him some of his middies, like do what Akeem was doing with a lot of big players. Because DeMar has an incredible mid-range game.
Say if Ahmed had DeMar's mid-range game, he's probably just straight up all NBA this year.
Easily.
Like if he had a consistent 20-footer, he could just knock down. He's all NBA, 100%.
I agree, and it's weird because he was ahead of his brother because we thought that he could be a great two-way player, whereas we knew his brother could be a terrific defender. But in Detroit, they don't put pressure on Asor to be a scorer. They're content with him just being a defender. Because I think Amen has a higher ceiling. It's why we're a little harder on him. I would not give up on Amen Thompson anytime soon, but I think you're right. I think going forward, if they're going to make a move, the guy they're going to move off of, and you'll get back something for him, is going to be Şengün.
No, absolutely. And then, hey, before we get out of here, Mo, the East, 2-3 seeds, Celtics and Knicks, and both have 48 wins. Say right now, the Raptors, Sixers, and Hawks are all just kind of jumbled together. And the Heat, Hornet, and Magic all have 39 wins. They're pretty much the bottom of the East is all jumbled together. So I guess my question to you is, if you're the Knicks or Celtics, who are you hoping to get in that first round matchup? Right now, that 6th seed is the Raptors. Would you want to keep it at Toronto or take your chance with Sixers, Heat, Hornets, or Magic?
I'd rather play the Heat or not Orlando because I think they're hard. Even with Paolo's kind of been up and down, but I think the Heat would. If I had a preference, it would be Miami. I think Miami would be the easier team to beat.
But they got number one peer scorer in the NBA, Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, I know they got the guy that dropped 83 and all. And despite that, I'm still picking against them. Imagine that. I just don't think Miami has the offensive firepower continuity to beat a team like Boston in the series. If I'm the Celtics, I want to play the Heat. I think the Heat are easier out than the Raptors are, even though the Raptors can be Jekyll and Hyde. When they are Dr. Jekyll and Scotty's playing at a high level, then you got what's the kid from Duke? I always forget his name.
That was Barrett.
Yeah, RJ Barrett's playing well. They have Quickly's there. BI when BI is on one, like they've got 3 guys that can drop 20 on a given night, and they've got a third that can drop just shy of that. So they don't lack for firepower. They can just be inconsistent at times. But I think they're a scarier matchup for the Sixers or for the Celtics or the Knicks than Miami is.
Yeah, the Raptors are just stupid long defensively, so I think they can muck up more offensive game plans than the Heat. So I completely agree with that. If I'm sitting in the 2-3 seed, I'm hoping for that first round matchup against Miami because I know Jimmy Butler ain't walking through that door.
He is not. He is not.
Absolutely. Say that being said, Mo, that's all I had for us today. Anything you want to add before we get up on out of here?
Oh no, thank you to the chat, Kyle, T3&D, the whole crew. Thank you guys for joining us this Thursday. Make sure you guys show up again and join us next Thursday for M1.
Absolutely. And make sure to keep checking us out. Hope you enjoyed our reacting to our Bleacher Report scores list. Honestly, I'll let you guys know. I'll probably end up making one of those, but I tend to save lists like that for the off season. You say keep giving us new stuff to talk about. I didn't have to drop 44 times to win a series. If he did it once in the playoffs, I would be dumbfounded, honestly.
I was going to say, I'd be impressed with it once. Just once. Wow.
But yeah, well, if there's anything you want us to talk about, make sure to let us know. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.